Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Indicott Invest channel. Today, NVIDIA had crazy good earnings. As you can see in the title and thumbnail, this is super bullish for Nebius, and I'll kind of go through why. First, let's hop into this is some price action. I typically like to do this just to kind of show you guys how the stock's reacting. Now, for some reason, right at when they printed, it's popped 3.5%, and now it's down, a 0.5% after hours, and essentially almost only up about 1% today. I'm not entirely sure why because they crushed it, and I'll show you the numbers in a second. Now it is up for the whole week, around 4%, and so maybe that's partially why. If you look at the past month, I mean, it's only up 4% again. And so people were kind of telling me, and when I tweeted saying how was it not up far more, people were like, "Oh, it's because it's run into earnings." I don't entirely agree, but it's okay to disagree. Agree to disagree. Now, like I said, earnings was fantastic. They had a record quarterly revenue of 68.1 billion, up 20% from Q3, so quarter over quarter, a 20% growth, and up 73% from a year ago today. Now, that I think their guidance was 66.35, so they beat it by around 2 billion. Again, crazy good. In their record fully revenue of 215.9 billion, up 65% year over year. Now, I don't know if in this article they go over their Q yeah, so here's more just numbers here. So again, also gross margin, which has always been a topic of discussion for NVIDIA, 75% gross margin. I mean, just this is one of the best. This is the best company on the planet, right? And so the earnings were insane. Now I kind of want to show you guys as well, just more on the numbers, and more on some stats here. So again, compute versus networking. Gross margin was 75%. Operating expenses, not up crazy year over year. EPS was 176 versus the guidance, I think, of 153. I forget the exact, but again, they beat their guidance there. Now, obviously, like I said, growing 73% year over year, and their big piece, the big part, and I'm trying to find it here, and I'm not sure if they actually showed it. Maybe they didn't. Oh, here we go. No, this is for interesting. Essentially, the guide or the expectations for Q1 2026 was 73.5 billion, I believe. And they guided and came in for 79 billion, which is around an 8 to 10% beat on guidance. And they always stand back, right? They always come in and under guide. So they're probably going to do 80 billion in revenue, which is 80% year over year growth. And so let me reiterate that. They're growing 80%. They're re-accelerating revenue as a company worth 4.5 trillion, going to be doing hundreds and hundreds of billions in revenue, 100 billion in net income, something like that. I mean, just insane when you really think about it, right? Why it's bullish for Nebius? Well, A, it shows the trend of where compute is continuing to head and how we're still in a situation of bottlenecked demand, um, or bottleneck supply. So again, there's not enough supply on the planet for NVIDIA to produce more chips, AMD. And so clearly it just shows the demand and how they continue to see that demand while they accelerate their revenue, which is only bullish for Nebius, right? And the reason I say that as well, and let me hop over to Fiscal AI. Something cool here with Fiscal is you actually can do an AI summary of the transcript. And so what I did is I just said, because I listened to the call just a little bit, but I didn't have a chance to listen to the entire thing, through and through. But I heard a lot of talk of inference, which, as we know, Nebius is an inference compute platform, and they do inference compute. And so, obviously, any talk of inference, I just want to hear what he has to say, hear his thoughts, and hear where the trend and trajectory is going. And so, what he said, and I'll just go ahead and read through this. So, the importance of inference moving forward. Inference was highlighted as critically important moving forward on 14 distinct occasions throughout the discussion. This emphasis stems from its direct correlation with revenue generation for customers and cloud service providers, as well as its foundational role in expanding landscape of AI applications. Speakers underscored that inference equals revenues now for our customers, with the ability to generate tokens at higher speeds and lower costs directly translating into increased profitability. This was exemplified by Blackwell architecture's strengthening demand due to growing inference deployments, NVIDIA's Inference King status with the NVL72, achieving up to 50x performance per watt and 35 lower cost per token compared to the previous generation, and the Rubin's platform projected 10x reduction in inference token costs. So again, I don't want to go through the entire thing, but let's go ahead and touch on this last piece. The persuasive The pervasive nature of agentic AI, which generates an exponential number of tokens, necessitates high speed and efficient inference. This makes performance per watt in inference a critical metric to data centers, directly impacting their revenue potential. The consistent focus on improving inference performance, reducing costs, and expanding its application across various industries from hyperscalers, etc., etc. Now, from hyperscalers to physical AI and gaming, firmly establishes inference as a paramount driver of future growth and innovation for NVIDIA and the broader AI ecosystem. Now, the broader AI ecosystem obviously is the AI infra plays like a Nebius, like an Iron, and just overall like the commentary I'm hearing and the things we're all of us, any of us nerds that pay attention to this space are seeing with the agents and Claude and all the stuff Anthropic is releasing on Claude and Claude Code. It's just going to cost more and more and more for token generation. Inference compute is just becoming more and more in demand, right? And for those that don't know, there's two types of compute. So there's training compute. So obviously, like training a GPT, training an Opus for Claude. But then there's inference. So it's the decision making between. So if you type a question in ChatGPT, it gives you an answer. That's inference compute it's using to go ahead, inference that information, give it to you, boom. And now that is moving forward the next 10 years. What is needed for these agents, for what we want to get to AGI, people are talking about, and just anything related to the AI space, inference compute is the way to go. Now, again, this is just an example of trying to understand the entire market broadly speaking. I don't want to just stick to just knowing Nebius and only knowing Nebius. I want to hear what NVIDIA has to say, AMD has to say, Meta, all these other big companies that are really investing and see where the trend is going, see what they're saying. And I think this highlights even more why their acquisition of Tavily is even more, strategic, right? I think they saw the writing on the wall that clearly this agent movement is blowing up, and we're seeing it more and more and more. And so the fact they were probably seeking this acquisition months ago, kind of getting ahead of the ball now. And so now it just lines up to where I'm sure all customers are now like, how can we agentify anything in our systems, right? How can we build a platform that has agentic movements or has agentic orchestration layers? How can we use agents, right? And so having Nebius's ability to give them or offer them that under the Tavily umbrella, right? Not making it a Nebius agent, sort of software. It's still under Tavily. So they still keep the client relationships, but it has that really symbiotic relationship between those Tavily clients can go now and probably have some sort of relationship when it comes to inference compute. Those inference compute clients like Shopify, Cloudflare, Revolut, they can now go to Tavily and say, "Hey, we have some agents we can build you. We have a good layer that we've been doing for a long time, and we work with X number of companies." So clearly, Nebi is still right in the wall, and I'm loving the strategy they're going with. Right, I think this quarter to me proved that Nebius is even more strategically sound than I initially thought. Obviously, I knew they really were. That's why I like the name. But the fact they were probably looking at this acquisition in Q2 or Q3 of last year shows they're really thinking ahead of where the trend is going and what they're seeing with their customers. Right now, another big thing too is I think for the first time, um, under or not hyperscaler companies for NVIDIA, so not the Google, Meta, Amazon, and a few others, are growing faster in terms of revenue for NVIDIA than the big boys. Um, and so to me, that also shows the sign in the times of where now it's not just the big guys saying, "Oh, they're not seeing the forest through the trees." It's everyone in the broader space is now like, "Oh crap, we need to catch up." And so I think we're seeing, that's sort of the trickle down effect, right? Like it starts with the hardware and the GPUs. It then becomes okay, now that we have the GPUs, now that we're buying the compute, how are we going to inference train this? Boom, Nebius, right? Iron, Cypher, Wolf, CoreWeave, plenty of other names. Regardless, that to me just speaks on the broader space and where it's heading. And so, again, like I'm super bullish, guys, on this market. I think the consistent talk of we're in a bubble. I just don't see it. Maybe we're in inning 4 or 5, maybe. Maybe we see it pop in 2028. I just don't see over the next 4 to 6 quarters any sort of top or bubble. Obviously, I'll keep it consistent quarter by quarter, keep myself updated on where NVIDIA is going and all of the mega tech companies are going, because that's always important and sort of a trickle down effect for Nebius. But yeah, I just wanted to come on, talk quickly on NVIDIA's earnings, why it's bullish for Nebius, and yeah, I mean, broader space is crazy. Obviously, you guys know I have a pretty high price target for Nebius, and so moving forward, I think we'll see a lot of great price action for the rest of the year. But yeah, we'll see. Appreciate you guys following along. Appreciate the support, and talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.